This presentation is about the notebook assignment. The notebook is a kind of writing that we're going to ask you to practice all throughout the semester. This presentation is designed to give you some ways to think about the notebook and how you might use it in the course. The first way we imagine you using the notebook as a site for exploration. Now, you're going to take up a topic during the semester, and you'll be using it all throughout the semester, but that doesn't mean that you won't have new things to discover as you continue to work with the topic. So we think the notebook will be a good place for you to play around with ideas that are related to your writing project, to discover and to identify connections that occur among your sources, perhaps connections that other people won't have already seen. We also think that you might use the notebook as a place to explore possible approaches to a writing project. Here's an example of a notebook prompt that might help you do that. If you collected several images that are related to your topic and then did a little writing about what connects them, that might help you discover some things about your assignment that you haven't thought of when you first looked at it, maybe a better approach. We hope that you'll use the notebook to experiment in the course. We're asking you to do more than one kind of writing in the course. We're asking you to write in more than one genre, but also in more than one medium or mode. So we think the notebook is an excellent place for you to explore new writing strategies, such as writing in different mediums and modes. We think you could also explore and experiment with the voices that participate in the public discussion of your topic. Here's a notebook prompt that might allow you to do that. You could create a dialogue between two of your sources. You could do this in the form of a comic or of a text to animation program if you wanted to, or you could just write a script. But you could make the sources talk to each other, and this might be a way for you to discover interesting things about the ways that people talking about your topic actually connect and diverge. We hope that you'll use the notebook as a place to invent. Now, invention is an important canon in the study of rhetoric and composition, and it has been so since ancient times. We think the notebook is a great place for you to, for instance, come up with new or unexpected ways to use your sources. Well, for instance, you might use your source to disagree with it, or you might use your source to find something you agree with, but another place where perhaps they haven't covered an idea that you think is even more important. We think your notebook is a good place for you to revise and come up with more effective and more beautiful sentences. We also think that this is a place for you to try out and imagine possible apt responses to your writing situation. Here's a notebook prompt that might help you do that. If you visited a public space that's related to your issue and took notes on it, this might help you to discover and then invent approaches to your topic that take into account who the people are who are affected by your issue, how they experience your issue, and what the stakes are for them. We hope that you'll use the notebook to reflect on your work. We think you can look at the strategies that you've already tried. You can think about the things that have been successful and perhaps not as successful, and you can imagine what things you'd like to try next as you revise or take up a new writing assignment. Here's an example of a notebook prompt that might allow you to do this. You could return to an essay that you've written and start to develop ways that you might revise the essay by, for instance, changing some strategy or revising some part. Now, we want you to think of the notebook as a little bit of writing on the side. Almost every writer does this. You may be involved in a writing project and you're working away and you find that you've come up against an obstacle or a problem. Sometimes writers will step away from the draft that they're working on in order to write directly in some other space about what they hope to accomplish, what the problem seems to be, and why they might want to try a different way or a different means to address that problem. So in this course you have several major writing assignments, and the notebook is the writing on the side. The writing that might help you to explore strategies. The notebook is low stakes, so you're free to try things. There's no damage if you try something and it doesn't work out so well. It's a constructive space. You can build strategies, ideas, even whole sections of your drafts in there. You can discover new possibilities, invent new strategies or ways back in. Then you bring the insights back into your project. Here's a notebook prompt that might allow you to do that. For instance, you're writing about an issue and you're having a hard time realizing a strategy for representing a point of view other than your own. This notebook prompt might help you to more effectively imagine that rhetorical situation of someone other than yourself. So we want you to think of the notebook as a kind of atelier, which is a French word for an artist's studio. Studios are sometimes exhibition spaces as well as workspaces. So artists will sometimes invite people into their studios to show their work in progress, or to show some works that are finished but other works that are still being fully wrought. Ateliers are great creative spaces, and they're spaces where the writer can keep the tools at hand that will help him or her come up with good ideas and invent new pieces of writing. So your notebook is a place to do work in progress, and we want you to also think of it as an ongoing art exhibit or display that you will keep on the English 2010 page of your ePortfolio.